The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and/or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Hooray for Hollywood, where stars are living large, in mansions with their servants and their credit cards in charge, with fame that's fleeting, but the egos never change, where everyone's a genius, except the ones who really arrange. Hooray for Hollywood, where the scandals always sell, where every whispered secret is a new tabloid's tell. Oh, how we adore the endless red carpet galore. Hooray for Hollywood, where less is always more.
Yes, indeed. Less is always more right here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premier podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfrey. Yay!
Yay! We're here to talk about the horrors of war. Yay! Good times will be had by all.
Mm-hmm.
So joining us again, Mark, thank you as always for the introduction. Much appreciated. We have Dorian Price joining us this time around because we get to talk some interesting technical aspects of filmmaking. So, Dorian, how you doing?
Not too bad, boss. How are you?
Been worse.
I'm loving the new goatee look you got going on. I know I haven't been on a show with you for a while, but it looks good. I'm liking it.
Yeah, it's starting to get warmer, so the full beard becomes a little bit more cumbersome.
Fair.
Before we get into kind of like opening stuff, Dorian.
Yes, sir.
I am old, Dorian. I am feeling like too little butter spread over too much bread. Yesterday, Dorian, I was kneeling on my knees on my bed, and I, in retrospect, made the wrong move. I chose the wrong path. I made a decision that cost me, Dorian. It cost me. It hurt me. Do you know what I did, Dorian? Nigh on my 47 years of life, almost 48 in a few months.
What'd you do?
Shifted to one knee.
Oh, no, yeah.
I've
heard
McMahon,
legend.
Yeah, and like Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon and Triple H twice and Kevin Nash, I blew a quad.
Fuck.
I heard it pop.
I have to ask how serious you're being with your medical diagnosis there. Like, I believe you hurt yourself going from 2 knees to 1 knee. That's coming for all of us. I believe that, but like, did you actually tear the muscle?
I don't think I completely. I mean, like Triple H couldn't. No, he could still finish the match if I remember correctly when he blew his quad both times. Shane and Vince were not getting up again. I don't think I completely tore it, but I definitely heard it pop. And
yeah, I've had some older friends of mine do that, and it's
a shooting pain from just below my crotch, like right at the top of my inner thigh, and it's just shooting across my thigh, as if like everything from the upper thigh below is going to get gangrene and fall off. That's how it feels.
And since we're talking a war movie, that's even better. It's like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to. Well, if it makes you feel any better, and I'm not trying to one-up your story, it just goes from you being like, I'm old, to Mark, I'm young, and I'm ambitious. But with ambition comes stupidity. So the reason that I'm wearing
What did you do? What did you do, young face Dorian?
Well, we're going to show that off first.
The horror!
It's like that old Phantom of the Opera meme for the 2004 one, and when his mask comes off, he's slightly sunburned on one side of his face, 2 arms. But no, I'm going to do it very short while we're waiting for Robert to come back. assume something happened there. Is let's just put it this way: long hair, flash powder, too much flash powder that's been spilled, and fire are not a good combination.
Were you in a match with a Japanese
they're not a
wrestler?
safe combination.
Were you in a match with a Japanese wrestler and you tried to throw a fireball?
No, basically to break it down, so there's a fire, supposed to throw the flash powder in, film it, and get the really cool thing that'll be a cutaway to something else. So the flash powder had wound its way from the person's pocket onto the floor or onto the ground and had kind of made a little trail. So I got up close enough to the fire and went, camera's protected, it's fine. Didn't realize I was standing on a chunk of powder, so when they threw it in, it whooshed and looked really cool, but it followed that trail and went right up my face.
Oh, God. It's a bad day at the office, pal.
So again, do not feel bad. All of us are a little. So yeah, for the audience watching, the sunglasses are not me trying to be postmodern John Lennon. It's just to be like, I do have both eyebrows still, but it actually it singed part of the eyebrow, so I have. And even Shay was saying this. She's like, you have Michael Keaton eyebrow now. It looks like I'm constantly quizzical.
Not to completely objectify you, but if I don't objectify you, then I'm a sexist. So I have to be equal parties here. Listen, no one cares about. No one. Keep the glasses on. The rest of your moneymaker works just fine.
Right. Just sit there and look pretty and shut up.
Are you ever coming back to the camera there, Robert?
I am trying to get my thing to recognize it. So
it's funny though, every time, and I understand why they do it is so you can see the person's talking, but just with the circle and there's no picture, it's like when he's talking, I'm waiting for him to go, I'm sorry, Mark, I'm afraid I can't do that.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Mark.
Will I dream? Daisy girl.
He says that to me anyway. Robert, be funny. I'm afraid I can't do that, Mark. Robert, be entertaining. I'm afraid I can't do that. Robert, let me be me. I'm afraid I can't do that, Mark. Hey, Dorian.
Okay.
Yo.
So this is not your usual brand of vodka. Why are you here?
Well, to be honest, I do like war films.
Mm-hmm.
I just, for the longest time, I tried to. Robert's back. For the longest time, I when I started on this podcast, I was really kind of just doing the horror movies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And as of late in my own films, I've been expanding out into trying to make other stuff for still low budget, things. But I hadn't gotten to go and sit and watch a war movie for a long time because honestly, there hadn't been one that came out that really grabbed me. And this one grabbed me because of one of the first behind the scenes featurettes I saw. That was, both directors knew intimately what had happened in this situation. It was told by, and helped be written by the people who were actually present there during this situation. And that grabbed me because we'd had what I'm going to call fun war films, like the Office of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which, was, more of a kind of a comedy.
I was waiting for you to go. We've had some fun warfare movies, like Platoon, and I'm like, oh boy.
Come on, that is a great comedy.
We've had laugh riots like Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers. Those comedy gold. No, seriously, it was just most war movies usually try to take it from more of an action-packed popcorn point of view. And this one very much seemed like it was taking himself very, very seriously, and the fact that it was based on real life events and being told by the people who had been there, that it grabbed me. And I've got a lot to say about it. But yeah, I even talked to you about that last time when we were doing the triple feature.
Let me cut in here. This is what we're talking about. We're talking Warfare, which is a 2025 action film written and directed by Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland. You may remember Alex Garland. He did Civil War last year from the same studio, A24. This is based on Mendoza's experiences during the Iraq War as a U.S. Navy SEAL. The film is a reenactment of an encounter he and his platoon experienced on November 19, 2006, in the wake of the Battle of Ramadi. To maintain historical accuracy, the film's material is exclusively taken from the testimonies of the platoon members and is presented in real time from beginning Beginning from the title drop, it stars an ensemble cast that includes D'Pharaoh Woon-A-Tai as Mendoza alongside Will Poulter, who apparently is in everything these days. And God bless him, he's a great actor, so no problems there. Cosmo Jarvis, Kit Connor, Finn Bennett, Joseph Quinn, and Charles Melton. It is dedicated to platoon member Elliott Miller, played by Jarvis, who lost his leg and voice in the incident. It premiered at the Music Box Theater in Chicago, March 16, 2025. Released by A24 this past April 11th. Pending release in the UK, it received highly positive reviews from critics, which is nice for a change. Back to you guys. There was a couple of different ideas to what to do this weekend, but I was really interested in doing Warfare because of I don't want to use the word gimmick because gimmick is a little flip, but the framing device of this will be this is real time shown what happened to these guys in this particular arena of the Iraq War. So I was really interested in what this was going to look like. I'm going to kind of transition from this. I was getting a lot of Black Hawk Down vibes from this movie. This is a story about a pinned down troop trying to, work its way out of this field of battle without losing everybody. I also like war movies. We've done quite a few of them on here, especially me and Andrew, because Andrew and I every year have a tradition. We do something for Veterans Day. We've done a bunch of different things. We've done a lot of TV shows, like we've done Band of Brothers. We did Generation Kill when Jesse and I were doing the David Simon stuff. We've also done Full Metal Jacket. Or we were supposed to. I don't know if we ever actually covered it. I know. That's one of my favorites. Is Full Metal Jacket.
If you haven't done that and you do, you have to call Mick for that one because that is one of her favorite movies since she is a Marine brat. So
okay. I know I've seen Platoon a bunch of times. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on here. I've kind of lost track of what we've done, what we haven't done. How about you, Robert? What are some of your, just really quick, we don't have to make a whole long thing about this. What's some of your favorite war movies as compared to this one? I'm
a little bit weird because I like my war movies to be kind of one extreme or the other. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of a philosophy clash about war films in general. There's the one hand which says any war movie is inherently going to glamorize war because there's glorification going on, even if you try to be honest to the horrors of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Seeing it on the big screen, and people don't like that because they don't like admitting that there's, I don't want to say an upside to war, but pretending that human beings are incapable of rising to heights under adverse circumstances is just something they like to pretend doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So no, everyone turns into the worst version of themselves when faced with war, and that's not true. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying that there's a lot of people who just assume the worst about all human beings under all circumstances, and they'd rather not confront the reality that that's not the case. And then there's the other side, which argues a little bit that every war movie is an anti-war movie because if you're honest about war, it's terrible. No one should want to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And those are sort of the conflicting, again, sort of philosophical approaches to the depiction of war in media and entertainment media in particular. And it tends to get a little bit dicier the closer you are to the subject material. No one complains too much if you do a raw Revolutionary War movie, or counterpoint, if you do a more gritty, like quasi-revisionist deconstruction of a Revolutionary War film. Again, that's not going to get too much flack. You'll get some, depending on specific choices you make, but look, put it this way, nobody complained too much about the portrayal of soldiers in like Cold Mountain, which is set against the backdrop of the Civil War, just as a point of reference. Because we're so far removed from it, like, oh no, soldiers did bad things. True. Oh, soldiers did great things. Also true. On both sides. Yeah, no one cares. Like, we can acknowledge this, but the closer you get to the modern setting, the more difficult that becomes to acknowledge. People would rather do Vietnam movies about everyone going crazy than Vietnam war movies that are true to the stories, which sometimes have people going crazy, sometimes have great heroism. And the triumph of humanity and the human spirit. And again, trying to find the right balance there is the real difficult thing to do. So you get some movies. I mean, if you want this distilled down into two movies that came out, one in a direct response to the other, we actually Platoon, which is Oliver Stone's movie, as a response to Platoon.
Oliver Stone, wildly disturbed human being.
Who'd have thought? But kind of in response to Platoon, I think it was Platoon at least. Might have been some other Vietnam War movie, but for some reason Platoon sticks in my head because that was one of the first ones that kind of like tried to be, or it might have been Full Metal. Again, the timeline gets messed up in my head, but there's a John Wayne movie called Green Berets, which is a direct response to some of the like, oh, the Vietnam War was terrible. Everyone who took part in it was a baby killer and needs to be shunned. The entire exercise was just futility, blah, blah, blah. And so John Wayne kind of went to the War Department and said, I'll basically do propaganda for you if you help finance my movie. But, you know,
Green Berets, 1968, starring and co-directed by John Wayne, was a direct response to the growing anti-war sentiment in the United States during the 1960s. It was made to counter the wave of anti-war films and media coverage critical of U.S. involvement in Vietnam, such as the CBS documentary "The Selling of." So yeah, this precedes Platoon and
pre-Platoon. But again, there was some movie that came out right around then that was one of the first like serious kind of, we're going to take an anti-war perspective on this and like cast everyone as villains. And this was kind of the response to that. So you get a little bit of the back and forth there. Wayne did that with something else. Rio Bravo relative to it's the one that's done in real time as well. It's High Noon, Jimmy Stewart,
Dr. Strangelove.
Okay, thank you. It was Dr. Strangelove then. Okay. So, point being, like my personal taste in war movies, I like ones that are able to ride that line effectively. You can't look away from the horrors of war and what it does to people, but if you pretend that all it does is that it's only degradation, that it's only insanity, you do a giant disservice to the people who wind up fighting and serving in those circumstances.
There was an interesting thing that happened in the 80s where they weren't necessarily making movies anymore that were either criticizing or lauding our efforts in Vietnam, but and we've talked about this before, specifically with with dealing with like Rambo or the Chuck Norris film Missing in Action. They stopped being about the war and they started being about the soldier.
Yeah.
The soldier was Superman, essentially. Rambo goes back to Vietnam and slaughters, many of them with a machine gun. Chuck Norris goes back to Vietnam or Korea and rescues POWs and kicks everybody. That sort of thing. Nobody in Hollywood necessarily wanted to make a movie that said the Vietnam War was a good thing, but we stopped making movies making the soldiers a bad thing, which was a change in the dynamic. I was telling my son about this because I took my kids to go see Warfare over the weekend, and my daughter made it. She's alive. Afterwards she declared, "I don't like movies about war. I'm done now, thanks." My son goes, "This was the best movie I've ever seen. This was great. Like, I would watch this again." And I'm like, "Yeah, good for you, 11-year-old boy." And then there's my daughter going, "Never again. I don't want to watch any more movies like this. This was way too much." She sat with her hands over her ears for most of the movie, which I don't blame her. We'll talk about that.
There's a few parts where it's deliberately loud, but
yeah. Well, yeah. And my son's already pegged this for getting an Oscar nominee for sound design. Little junior critic.
Non-trivial chance.
I remember there was an Oscar season where like everything nominated for an Oscar was about Iraq and Afghanistan. There were like 87 different movies.
That was pretty much. I think that was the year the Hurt Locker won.
It was the Hurt Locker.
Because Avatar's nominated at the same time, but you can argue whether or not Avatar talks to that because. Yeah, that's a whole other. I'm not going to get.
Obviously, euphemistically, it definitely comments on war.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not touching the Avatar can of worms at the moment. I mean, and you and I raked that most recent Robin Hood movie over the coals for being a very, very terrible commentary on the war on terror.
I want to because I wanted to ask Dorian this first, but he was having camera issues. What are some of your, just real quick, and then we're going to get into the plot synopsis. What are some of your favorite war movies, Dorian?
Top of the list has got to be, and probably always will be, Saving Private Ryan.
It's a good one.
I'm a Spielberg bitch. I'll say that, right off the cuff. Very quick story here. The first film school I ever had at the ripe old age of 6 years old was a old version of a video game called Steven Spielberg's Director's Chair. And the whole point of the thing was that they'd already filmed stuff. Quentin Tarantino's in the game as an actor. It's really funny. And they taught you how to edit stuff. Look it up on YouTube. It's great. But yeah, I saw Saving Private Ryan. I actually, we own an old ass VHS of Green Berets, which I saw. So that's definitely up there. Full Metal Jacket, definitely, even with some of my dislike of Stanley Kubrick. But this is not let's talk about Dorian's favorite directors. That's a whole different episode. That's going to be.
I like you, son. I'll let you fuck my sister.
Private Joker. But say let's Platoon's in there. And even though this one's technically not a war movie, in my opinion, it is First Blood, the very first Rambo movie.
Oh, that's a great one.
Is it's got to be in my top 10.
You count that as a war movie though? That's an interesting categorization.
I count it as a war movie, and not to make too fine a point on it. I count it as a war movie because of the how they handled the real life shit that was going on of people disliking Vietnam soldiers, and it's a war movie, if nothing else, for the fact that this is a soldier in a situation that he is cut off from, help and stuff like that, and he's on his own, which in itself makes a very interesting story. But the last, I'd say, 20 minutes, the minute that, and I'm forget the actor's name, but he's John Rambo's old colonel, and he's talking to the sheriff.
Oh, Troutman.
Yeah,
well, that's
Troutman.
the character.
Yeah. Point it when the colonel looks at the sheriff and goes, "God didn't create John Rambo, I did." And it's like the minute that line is said, that the rest of it from there on is a war movie, kind of encapsulating with the very end when they're walking him out. But John's whole breakdown of remembering the war, and he's crying, to that, to me, is what makes it a war movie. Is that
Richard Crenna, by the way, has some of the best lines in that series of movies.
Oh God, yeah, no, it's like even if you didn't like the rest of the movies and thought they went off the rails, which they did, Crenna is fantastic. But just kind of bookending, and sorry, Robert, you can break it in just a second. To me, it's a war movie because it puts the personal lens on what this does to you. And war cannot just be seen as a whole bunch of people with guns running around looking badass. In my opinion, it also must address the emotional things of it, which is why First Blood and Full Metal Jacket are both on my list.
I would like to say this to that, and then I'm going to let Robert cut in here. It's not worth fighting you on it. I don't know if I would. I agree with everything you said. I still wouldn't categorize it as a war movie. Post-war, sure. A movie that deals in PTSD, absolutely. A movie that comments on the Vietnam War, a movie that comments on the treatment of soldiers, 110%. And and Dorian, write this down. I did a Long Road to Ruin on the Rambo series. I have talked about it at length.
I'll have to check it out. Well, in that case, to balance out my list, then Glory.
Oh, good. Somebody mentioned Glory, or I was going to have to. One of my favorite movies of all time. It's fantastic.
Glory is phenomenal. I also appreciate that you can cut out less than like 5 seconds of that movie, and suddenly it passes muster to be shown in school.
Right.
Yeah. I watched it in junior high. My history teacher, when we'd studied the Civil War, played that for us. And yeah, there's you cut out like 2 lines of dialogue and 1 brief sequence in the Battle of Antietam at the opening bit. And suddenly it's rated low enough to be appropriate for teenagers. Which is weird, but it is.
And here we are.
So as for some of my favorite war movies, because I kind of got on like using war as a subject material there. I'm going to echo most of Dorian's list. So looking beyond that, let me find a couple of that I tend to enjoy that he didn't mention. One my dad insisted I watch, actually, not too long after it came out. It's called We Were Soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
See, I actually like that movie only because of the interplay between Mel Gibson and Sam Elliott. In fact, if I'm having a very grumpy morning, since both of you seen the movie and you know the scene I'm talking about, when the guy who's just he's upbeat soldier and he sees Sam Elliott walking towards him, he's like, "Beautiful morning, Sergeant Major," and in pure Sam Elliott, no mustache, but pure Sam Elliott form, he just doesn't even hardly make eye contact, just walks past him and goes, "How do you know what kind of a goddamn day it is?"
Perfect.
I love that one. I like the second one he does too, because they repeat that joke.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks by and it's a lovely day, and he goes, "Beautiful morning, Sergeant Major." And what are you, a fucking weatherman now?
What are you, the fucking weatherman?
He is a perfect Sergeant Major for that. Like that movie is well cast, it's well acted. Like I get that's another one of those that there's like half a dozen people in it who, if you watch it, you go, "Oh wait, you went on to do something." Like Clark Gregg is in it, John Hamm's in it, Ryan Hurst is in it.
We Were Soldiers is technically, because of Clark Gregg, is an unofficial part of the MCU. It's just Coulson being trained before he
has to be rebuilt the first time.
Yes,
Unpopular opinion. I like Jarhead.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I kind of
that is an unpopular opinion.
I enjoy that one. And I know Robert mentioned this at the start. I'd probably add Black Hawk Down to it, even though that one makes me cry like a bitch.
Yeah, well, I started this whole thing with Warfare. Gave me Black Hawk Down vibes.
I think in a good way. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'm trying
absolutely.
to remember the other. There's a couple of other that are. There's a couple other that I enjoy that are military, but I don't know how much I'd throw them into like outright war movies.
Yeah, be careful, Robert. If it's not an actual war movie, Mark's gonna jump you on it. Like, I didn't get out the door with First Blood. Yeah. He's like, no, you sit your ass back down and put another answer down.
Hang on. To that end, Rambo 4, which is just titled Rambo because the Rambo movie's titling makes no sense. Outside of First Blood, 4 is my favorite of those movies.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one where he was like, he'd gone back.
He's in Burma.
Yeah.
So
it's where they should have ended the franchise.
Hang on, for the sake of the audience, and because I like doing this, First Blood is Rambo is home from Vietnam. He's going to find his friend. His friend has died. He comes across Brian Dennehy, and Brian Dennehy says, "We don't like people like you in town. Please leave." And he takes him to the edge of town and goes, "Don't come back now, you hear?" And and because John Rambo is who he is, he turns around and starts walking back. At which point, he's abused by the police. And he takes revenge on them and goes into the woods. And at that point, Richard Crenna shows up and says, "Don't do this. This is a bad idea." At the end of it, he's killed most of the cops, or has maimed them, at the very least. And he goes to prison.
Hang on. This is actually a stark departure from the novel, which I read before I ever saw First Blood, the movie.
Oh, right.
If you've never read...
Almost entirely different movie from the book.
If you've never read the book, one, it's really good, but it is very. If you want a movie that's more in tune with what the book does, there's a movie starring Benicio del Toro and Tommy Lee Jones called The Hunted that is more in line with the spirit of the First Blood novel.
So the second one is the one that everyone knows. It's people think it's called Rambo. It's actually called First Blood Part. It's called Rambo First Blood Part 2. And that is he is extracted from prison. He basically does like a consultant role with the Marines. They send him into Vietnam to take pictures of a POW camp to prove whether or not there are POWs there. He finds live POWs, and because he cannot leave them behind, he tries to rescue them. And because they don't want him to do that, they leave him there. And so he has to escape a Russian prison camp that is set in Vietnam. Rescue the prisoners,
by shooting everything,
by mowing down everything in Vietnam that he can find.
Just again, if you don't want to watch the whole movie, just put into dear sweet viewing and listening audience. Just if you don't want to watch the whole second Rambo movie and just kind of get a quick encapsulation of it, go to YouTube and put in UHF Rambo parody. Just watch that. You've got the whole movie.
Or Hot Shots Part 2.
That one too.
For the record, the fact that Richard Crenna was able to go into the Hot Shots franchise and parody his role from the Rambo movies is another reason everything he did was great. Like to be able to take yourself not that seriously, even in a serious role, just good stuff there.
So the third one, yet again, Rambo is in prison. They get him out, and now they're fighting with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan.
Don't ask who they turned into.
Yeah, don't look it up, or 9/11 for that matter. The fourth one is the most grotesque of all of these. It's awesome, but it is violent as fuck.
It is the most graphically violent.
I was going to say it is violent to the level of almost being pornographically violent, and that's the one where he's leading Christian missionaries through Burma. And then the fifth one, I believe, is Last Blood, and that's
Last
the one
Blood,
where
which you and I kind of raked over the coals.
Yeah. We weren't as we weren't as bad about that as the actual critics. We kind of. We were able to find something good about that movie. But yeah, that's the one where he deals with human trafficking, and he's home. He's home and he's taking care of like a Mexican family, and he rescues the Mexican girl.
Yeah.
Killing people in the tunnels.
Listen to Mark and I
throughout his house. Yeah. So anyway.
But anyway,
right,
so
Robert.
hang on. So point there being, fourth Rambo movie, if you consider that a war movie, is one of my favorites. And in the same kind of vein, Tears of the Sun, which is Bruce Willis led. It's about a Navy SEAL operation in Nigeria. There's some issues with the movie, but it also has a score by Hans Zimmer, and he makes everything better.
Look, if we're gonna stretch the definition of war movie, then I'm counting Iron Eagle, and that's awesome.
Right.
I'm gonna leave that alone.
You should.
So this warfare movie.
I'm leaving that alone because I've seen the Iron Eagles beyond the first one, and I don't want to talk about what happens to that franchise.
Yeah, we've all seen all the Iron Eagle movies.
No, you haven't. People watch the first one and go, "That was really awesome." Hey, what about the sequels? There are no sequels.
It's like Highlander. There can only be one.
I've seen the sequels, yes, and I've seen all the Highlander movies too. And hey, Torian, write this down. We've done A Long Road to Ruin on the Highlander movies.
Yeah,
we
did.
Those go off a cliff in a hurry.
By the way, folks, the reason that Mark keeps saying write this down and says that we've done A Long Road to Ruin for it is because he gets tired of me getting excited and sending him a text going, "Hey, me and my friends would love to do this. We've already done that one." But Dad,
stop bothering. I'm in bed blowing out quads. And with that said, Robert, plot synopsis.
So, as Mark mentioned, kind of the gimmick here, and I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean, like, what's the difference between this and any other generic war movie? They try to display the events of this basically in real time from the time the title card drops until the credits start rolling is exactly kind of what happened over the exact time period under which it took place for them. So whenever the characters are calling out, transport's 5 minutes out, it's going to be 5 minutes of you sitting in the theater before the transport gets there. Like, that's how this goes. So it's set during, again, after the Battle of Ramadi. It's 2006. We're in Iraq. And the opening bit play is like a brief introduction to all these characters because, like all Navy SEALs do, they gather around together and watch softcore porn, which is jazzercise, because this is what you did in 2006 before the internet was ubiquitous, especially if you were deployed to Iraq. They then are sent to be support assets for a Marine mission. So we see them going through this town. We see them post up in a house. Get the poor people who live in both the downstairs and the upstairs separated apartments and put them in a bedroom. You're like, chill, we're just going to be here for a bit, then we're going to leave. And then title card drops. And from there on out, again, it's portrayed in real time. So it's this group of SEALs as they are observing some of the stuff around them. Again, they're here in case things go real bad, and they're intelligence gathering and all that fun stuff. So they're observing what's going on around them, and the people around them kind of have figured out that they're there by now. So they're looking at them, and they're like hatching their plan, and tension builds. Then a grenade gets chucked through a window, and all hell breaks loose for a couple of minutes. And one of the guys gets moderately injured. Takes a little bit of shrapnel from the grenade, nothing serious, but the first injury is not severe, but it's like, okay, we're going to call for an evac. We'll get a couple of tanks in here. You're injured. In you go, and you go back to base to get that treated. So as the tank rolls up to provide escort for this guy, as they all run out to try to get to the tank, a very large IED goes off, and this is where everything really goes sideways for them. The guy who was first injured gets.
I had dozed off, by the way, somewhere between the grenade and the IED. So I just sort of like dozed off and sort of lost consciousness for a minute. All I know is there's an explosion and the scene, and you're about to describe the scene, but all of a sudden I was like, "Oh God!" Like,
I'm up.
I jumped. I was like a cat. I was like, "Ah!" and I hit the ceiling.
That is the genesis of Mark's leg and back injury that he's now dealing with.
Yes.
So the tank rolls off because, of course, it does. One of their interpreters is killed outright. The guy who was initially injured now suffers serious damage to his legs and is way unconscious. One of the other soldiers is badly injured. His, which leg was it?
I think the left leg.
I can't remember. One of his legs gets.
I want to say it's left leg because I have a left leg injury where I shattered my femur. And I was kind of like, oh, my dude, I know you're having so much more worse pain than I am, but I feel you in this moment.
I think it was right because that's the leg they cut up to apply the tourniquet. You're right. Yeah, it's his right leg. Okay,
you right.
Yeah, it was almost as bad as my quad injury. Ugh.
Your moderately strained muscle.
IED explosion, leaning wrong way in bed. I mean, they are together born.
Yeah, I was overly empathizing with this guy.
So again, things go real bad. They are able to drag the two wounded soldiers back into the house where we have to apply some approximation of first aid. Tourniquets are applied, which, believe it or not, if you have a tourniquet being applied to you is one of the most painful experiences a human being can ever have.
Amen.
There's a little bit with the morphine, trying to get that working. One guy accidentally stabs himself with it.
That is my favorite part of this movie. He fucks up and
I love that was kind of our brief moment of comedy as we're gonna gotta go forward. Like, I mean, it's not
there's no levity in this movie at all. Like, can we have someone fumble the morphine maybe?
Yeah. There it is. Thanks.
So they're trying to maintain, as again, they're being attacked all this time. So there's a lot of gunfire. There's some grenades being thrown. A different SEAL element, a different SEAL platoon group company starts making their way towards them. And if I have
our main team is Alpha 1.
Yeah.
Alpha 2 was the other team that's trying to get their way towards.
Yeah. And they're able to fight their way through the streets to get there. And you can kind of see briefly the difference in approach between Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza. Alex Garland took the first group, so they're the ones doing all the acting and all the screaming and all the, oh boy, I don't know if these characters are going to react properly to this as they're so like concussed and shell-shocked. And then Ray Mendoza's squad is the military professionals. So I joke about this, but so they show up, and again, I'll talk about that when I talk about like some of the pros and cons of having dual directors on a project. So they're, again, Alpha 2 shows up. That group sort of helps them stabilize things. They're able to get their comms working again. They get their air support back, which is always good. They lie to the over the airwaves about who's allowing the tanks to come back in for their evac.
Yeah, because they don't want to send the Bradleys back in after the IEDs, so they grab what's his face? Sorry, I can't remember the actor's name. It's here in the notes somewhere. He's like, "Yes, I am the commanding officer." Which we'll talk about this later. There's very few moments in this movie that feel like a cliche military moment, but that one when they're like, "We're not sending it back in. You're on your own," was like, you know what? Really? I mean, I know that happens, but fuck you guys. Proceed, Robert. I just had to say something about that because
you're good.
I saw the movie today,
they flash and Martin Cove's back at the base going, "Don't send the tanks in." It's a Rambo 2 joke, by the way.
Yeah. So the first couple of tanks come in, they get the injured people on them, and then they head out, and then the other two come up, and they're still being fired at this entire time. So the guy in charge tells the tanks, like, you know what? Screw it. Anybody on a rooftop can just get it. So you Bradley tanks can unload onto them.
There's an old meme from I think probably about the same time this movie came out, probably 2006, 2007. I know I saw it when I was like 9. So 2006 would make sense. But it was literally a mortar grenade setup there's the sergeant who's giving the order, there's the person running the mortar, and then there's the spotter. And the whole it was one of those demotivational posters, and it said grenades, and at the bottom in tinier letters it goes, see that guy, fuck him and everyone near him.
Yeah, I remember that one. So the tanks unload, and it's one of the only places where I think the budgetary constraints show in this film, because I know the damage that kind of firepower unleashing would cause, and it ain't just black scorch marks on your stone. But so they're all able to get into the tanks, they escape, and then we get our then like all the insurgents or terrorists kind of come out, and they kind of get together and we're like, okay, so what did we accomplish? Well, we injured a couple of them. How many of us died? Boy, this is an unprofitable enterprise, isn't it? We should rethink our life. No, that doesn't happen.
Don't worry, nobody dies in this movie. They just get really big boo-boos. What did I tell you?
Well, on the side of the soldiers, that's true. So then we get our dedication to Elliott, who's the one who got both of his legs seriously mangled, but did survive, lost his left leg, still had his right, because we get some behind the scenes stuff of a couple of the survivors showing up to like do consulting or whatnot for the film, and we get side by sides of some of the soldiers who wanted their faces shown, some of them didn't, so they're blurred out, with the actors playing them. And you know what? Again, some really good casting here, actually, if we're talking just similarities in build, facial structure, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's it. Again, you watch this for like the experimental sort of thing about like, hey, watch this in real time and try to experience a little bit of what these guys went through during this brief moment in time. And to that extent, I think it's a success, but I'm, Mark, you get to go first, or you get to decide who goes first for the actual craft.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'm still a little bit messed up from Saturday. I got seriously dehydrated.
He shall deign to allow you to proceed, sir.
I just need him to stop talking. Hey, Dorian, what did you think of the movie?
I'm with Jonas, your son, on this one. I love this movie. This is one of the best movies of the year so far. I know we're still kind of early innings in 2025. I mean, by mathematics, we're almost halfway through the year, which is weird to think about. But no, this is one of the best films of the year. One of the most intense war movies I've seen in a very long time. It did affect me, which is good, because I don't like war movies that don't make me feel something. The acting was top notch. I cared about these people. I wanted them to get through. Like, the movie does and I'll go into it further as we discuss. The movie does a really good job, especially in its cinematography, of making you kind of feel like you're there without doing a POV camera the entire fucking movie. You become a unnamed member of the platoon. Like, if this had been a video game and it was all first person, and like, you kind of Call of Duty style, where you got your gun in front of you the whole time, the writing and the acting and how they do it makes you, and hell, I might start tearing up now. I remember being scared for Elliott the entire time. I'm like, I swear to God, if he doesn't make it through this, I will take a gun myself, walk out in that street, and kill every single one of these motherfuckers. Get out of my way. I will John Rambo this shit.
I'm going to kill all of you. Sir, we're Puerto Rican.
I don't give a fuck. But no, I absolutely loved it. It was done so well. Again, very few what I'm gonna call military movie cliches. We had the main command being like, the hot zone, or the LZ is too hot. We can't send anybody in. You're on your own. But again, that became a cliche because it happened in real life.
Yeah.
I'm sure it happened all the way back to the first time you could communicate over distances in war and beyond.
No, even before that, like, you get some of that stuff in like the Civil War when squads are like, boy, I sure do hope backup comes. Well, we sent a runner out. Let's see what happens. When the runner comes back, it's like, yeah, they're hung up back there. I don't know what to tell you guys.
Right. Yeah. So again, it's very few military cliches. The movie sucked me in from pretty much the first shot. Again, as was pointed out, there's some really great stuff done with the cinematography. What I loved about it most of all is, and I'm going to juxtaposition this movie against one of my favorites, Saving Private Ryan, which again is a Spielberg film. Spielberg is a John Ford fan. The director John Ford is a huge fan of Lawrence of Arabia. Spielberg got to see the movie Lawrence of Arabia with Lawrence of Arabia as director. Saving Private Ryan is done on an epic scale. We have wide shots of of landscapes and military movement. Christopher Nolan would do the same thing with Dunkirk.
Well, sorta.
I'm talking about like the wide shots.
Yeah,
and, like, that scope. I'm not saying
hey,
that
Dorian, write this down. We reviewed Dunkirk.
Yeah, no, I know. Don't worry.
I've got a singular complaint about Dunkirk, and it's only one. I know how many people were packed onto that beach.
Did we also do Midway?
No, we thought about it, but I didn't. You might have.
I know I saw it. I don't remember if we've ever reviewed it.
I don't think we reviewed it.
Oh, actually, you know what? Sorry, this is kind of right off the highway, but I'm gonna freak both you out. One of my favorite war movies of all time, Tora, Tora, Tora.
Oh, that's I can see where you're coming from.
But anyway, sorry, you said Midway, and that made me go, oh shit, how did I forget Tora, Tora, Tora? But no, coming back to the movie, I love war movies that make it very claustrophobic. Because even in a situation, if you're fighting in a wide forest, it is claustrophobic as hell. And I'm not speaking from experience. I'm speaking from talking to people. I've had girlfriends and friends that have had parents and grandparents that were, war veterans. Mr. Matt Kettner, who is a great staple of the W2M network, his father was a veteran of, I believe, 2 wars at the very least. And hearing some of the stories from that, and I believe it was him, Mr. Kettner Sr., who told me that even in the widest open of spaces, it feels like you're in a 2-foot box. And he told me, because I've been wanting to do a war movie for the longest time, and this movie actually kind of inspired me to push back on that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. The point is, I love the claustrophobia of it and the situation of how do we get out of this? How are we going to get to point A to point B? And yeah, it's the 2 director thing scared me too, but I almost loved how it worked because, again, as you pointed out, Robert, Alpha 1, we get more of the acting, we're getting into the emotions. Holy shit, are we getting out of this? And then the second, the drama.
More of the drama.
Alpha 2 team is not as important to the main storyline. They just need to get there. So them being the more streamlined military thing worked for me because it added to the tension. It's like, are they going to get there in time? Are they going to get there and they're all dead? I know at least, the directors are there, so somebody survived, but that's the tension of it. But yeah, one of the so far top 10 best films of 2025 in my personal opinion. We're going to keep talking about it. Obviously, I'm not wrapping this thing up, but if you haven't seen it, when we're done talking, go see it tomorrow.
Dorian takes over.
I will dean now to let you proceed.
Just to clarify, we have never done Midway. I just checked both places I would normally look, and apparently we never reviewed it.
I know we talked about it briefly, but
I think it was a Roland Emmerich movie, and you were like, "Fuck you, no, thank you."
It might have been something like that. It just, again, it was briefly discussed, and then something else came up, like something got shifted around, and that became a better option. So
you mean life?
Well, I know 2019 is when I had my reoccurrence of cancer, so who knows? I could have been sick in the hospital at the time.
Holy shit, that was Roland Emmerich. Wow.
Yes,
it was. 2019, Roland Emmerich. 2 reasons. So between cancer and Roland Emmerich, 2 great reasons why we didn't cover it. In any case,
haven't covered it yet.
Yes, it's it. Okay, so that one you can take. That one you can take, Dorian.
It's all yours, buddy. Have fun.
It'll be discussed when Mark and I do our director focus on Roland Emmerich because his career trajectory fascinates me to no end.
Oh yeah, please let me even just be a tiny little window on that one so I can just pop up every now and again.
I like this movie a lot. It's not perfect. I have some minor criticisms of it, but as an experiment in, we want to open a window for you to experience what it's like to be in this position, with no fat. And that's, I think if I don't focus on dramatic criticisms and I just take it as what it's meant to be, like Hot Frosty, for example, I
Hot Frosty and Warfare, like twins separated at birth.
then
He does that to annoy me.
then I think it achieved its goal. I think you get a very real vision into what it's like to be in the confusion of war. To be in a position of not knowing where the fire is coming from, to very much have to deal with live injuries as they're happening, to not want to leave one of your comrades behind and do whatever you can to save them, even though they are ripped to shreds. I think the actors in the movie, especially in that Alpha 1 group that you guys were talking about, like who we stay with for the majority of the movie, I think they did an excellent job. Will Poulter, he has a line later on in the movie where he's like, "I'm fucked up," and because there's so much other stuff going on, you don't realize that he is struggling. And I think, like I said, it's an example of, for such a loud movie, for such a busy movie, for a movie that's almost done in a foreign language. I mean, they are unrelentingly doing military speak. And you can get the gist of it because it is English, but minimally. But it is very much, you are transported to an alien world. All of that stuff worked for me. What can one say about the cinematography? They shot it on a street in Iraq. If that's what Iraq looks like, I'm not going to say like criticize. It's a very beige movie. It's exactly what it was supposed to be. That's that world.
Some places in the world are beige. There's nothing you can do about it.
Iraq and Albany, apparently.
There's actually a story that Mick tells about talking to her dad while her father is a retired master gunnery sergeant, United States Marine Corps. And they talked over video call at one point, and Mick goes, "Why is everything so beige? Like, why don't you have some color?" And he had to explain to his very young daughter, because everything around me is beige, and the idea is to not stand out and not get shot at.
Yeah.
So all of that's good. I mean, there's no plot to this thing. It's, they're pinned down and they are trying to get out of this. They are surrounded by insurgents and they're trying to get out of there without dying.
This does overlap with another subcategory of action with a dovetailing of military film genre. It's called siege film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah, the original, not the remake. Do not watch the remake.
There are beats in the movie. You said you have the initial explosion and the IED, and then they're dealing with the injuries, and then the other group has to get to them, and then they have to get the tanks in there. Then they get the Bradleys, and they have to get on the Bradleys. There's arguments over whether or not they did do show of force, which is a jet flying low overhead, that sort of thing. So it had beats to it. It's just there's just no plot here, which is fine. It doesn't have to be. Here's my one criticism. It's literally the only criticism of the movie I have, and I honestly don't have a whole lot else to say. I would agree this is one of the best movies I've seen so far this year. On my 3-point scale, it gets a 1. I hope this gets lots of nominations for Oscars. It's not actually. It's the second thing I have to say about it isn't necessarily a criticism. It's more of a statement of fact, but I think it's worth bringing up. So my first criticism, and really my only criticism, is because we have to get into the situation as quickly as possible, and because we are in service to the structure of the film. Like, this is a battle in real time. We got to get there fast and then do that battle, and that's going to be long enough as it is. We don't want this to be 12 hours. Fine. I don't feel like we got to know the guys as well as we could have. So so when things are happening to them, I identify with the characters in the movie as being, you're the guy that's injured, you're the guy that's saving them, you're the guy in charge. But they were a little just shy of interchangeable, which, again, when the whole point of this is to just show what this is like, and in real life, not everybody is going to be the most, especially in a military unit, not the most discernible of characters. You're not doing Private Joker, Private Cowboy, Private Pile, where you went out of your way to create discernible characters. This is, Johnson and Smith and Ford and Schmagegi and Gonzalez, and that's it. And they're just dudes. They're, dudes trained to kill in the theater of war.
And I think that actually one of the things, real quick, just bouncing off what you said, I think that's one of the things that is good about the film because, again, even Saving Private Ryan, movies that take the time to kind of give you a little bit more, we're going to be on the way, or we're at base and we're meeting these people, sometimes sets you up to know, okay, you're toast, you're going to die, you might win, you might get through.
And lampshade like a horror movie.
Right. It's like, but again, and I'm gonna let you finish. But I think one of the things that the lack, in this case, lack of character development, and I'm doing the bunny rabbit ears around that, is good, is that this movie doesn't insist upon itself. It doesn't take with the regular war film thing where it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah,
it's
but
the
that's my
runtime
point.
of warfare.
Right, and that's why I said I can't not call it out. It's very apparent, and
we have to
and
say
it runs against the grain of typical movie making. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm not going to sit here. I'm not doing the. It's good. Next,
you're not going to sit here and suck the movie's dick just for the sake of sucking the movie's dick.
Something I noticed. I think I would have preferred to get to know the guys a little bit better, but in the service of what exactly? So it's fine. The other thing I'm going to say is something that my son and I actually talked about when the movie was over. The comment about war is that it sucks.
No shit.
Yep.
Well, to be fair, occasionally you do have to state the obvious, and I hate that that has to be said every now and then, but
right.
Once in a while, you don't need a great deal of subtext. You don't need the most nuanced take. You don't need.
Yeah, I'm not complaining.
Okay, no, I'm just bouncing off of that because it has happened in the past that stuff doing this gets too cute by half, and this movie avoids that problem.
It doesn't take a stand on the Iraq War one way or the other. It doesn't take a stand on what we did in Iraq one way or the other. It literally says, "Here's a moment. This is what happened. It's terrible. It is one of the worst parts about doing what we did when we did it." Go ahead, Dorian. You were going to say something?
Yeah, no, and I was going to bounce off what Robert said and what you said, is that there is a propensity in war films to make it hero worship. And we should salute our heroes that stood between us safe at home and the bullets flying from the enemy. But it's a slippery slope on a razor's edge. Slippery slope walking a razor's edge of glamorizing and as we talked about at the start of the podcast, romanticizing war and showing just the pure grittiness of it, where again it falls under like the Shea doctrine of like it was beautiful, it was important, and I hated it because now I'm sad and I want to go home and cry, But this movie, I think, really hits dead center on how not every war film should be, but a lot of how good war films should be. Is it's simplistic. This is the situation. We need to get out of it, or we need to, need to deal with it. I'm going to bring up a not very good movie, and I'm also kind of stalling so Robert can get his camera back working.
Pearl Harbor.
Well, no, actually, it's not actually a war movie in such a way. It's the movie Ladder 49, and it's a firefighter movie. And the reason I bring that up is that there's Ladder 49. We're already screwed. The guy's going to die. The whole movie's basically a flashback. So that kind of takes some of the joy out of the film because okay, we're already dead. Why I kind of don't care now. And this movie gives you the idea of like, do we get out of this one? I don't. Okay. Crap. Here we go. As opposed to again, just leaning. And you're absolutely right, Mark. I'm backing your point out. If anything.
Yeah, it's funny you both went to romanticizing or glorifying war, and there are so many more Because, look, I'm just going to say it. I don't want to get into a debate about it, and I'm not taking a side. I'm stating a fact.
Mhm.
Hollywood is very liberal, and it's very anti-war. And a lot of the movies they make are anti-war movies. They're like, look how horrible this is. We shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be doing this. This is bad. All we are saying is give peace a chance. It is where it's funny because we're talking about, war movies and going, oh, we like this one, we like that one. Most of the ones we're citing have at least a pro-soldier point of view. But there are certainly plenty of, if not a pro-war point of view. Like, we are on the side of the philosophy of why we got in that war in the first place. Is where, where we tend to like those movies. But there is certainly a slew of movies over the years, going back to Robert's whole thing of, there were so many anti-war movies that they had to make one in response to it, where,
Right.
Hollywood's point of view is war is bad, soldiers are bad, getting involved in other countries is bad, all of it's bad, and here's 97 movies proving my point.
Mhm.
The thing about warfare is, and I lived through that. I was a young man during the Afghanistan and during the war on terror, Iraq and Afghanistan. And though I was not in the military, I was certainly paying attention to things. It's when I got into podcasting and blogging was, 2004. That's the beginning of Bush's second term.
Right.
I was in. I can remember to this day where I was when we went into Afghanistan and Iraq. Iraq specifically, because I was in New Orleans when we went into Iraq. And like, I remember like partying with my friends. We were like in a bar and like, drinking hand grenades and a real drink, by the way, not,
Irony abound.
gunpowder. Shrapnel.
They might as well have gunpowder in them half the time, but I get what you mean.
Lucy, you got some sploding to do.
But yeah, I remember like, again, we're in the middle of New Orleans on Bourbon Street and we're drinking and having a great time. And suddenly, like, we see Bush come on the screen and then they start showing the invasion of Iraq. And we're like, oh, well, this is kind of a killjoy.
I remember when that happened. They cut the I was watching TV and the broadcast cut off. And apparently I will have to address the camera
as does
thing
your
later.
camera repeatedly. So the only thing, I just wanted to finish up this point, and if you're still able to participate, Robert, I'll shift it over to you.
I'm still here. My camera's just being weird, and at this point, screwing around with it seems to be an exercise in futility. So I will mess with it later and see if I can fix that.
I like the fact that this isn't a dissertation on the goodness or badness of war. Is not what the point of this movie. The point of this movie is that war sucks. What happens to these soldiers is brutal, but also soldiers are brave, and they have to do things that many of us in our life will never have to do in order to survive being in a war zone.
And let me take that a step further. Take that statement a step further. Mm-hmm. Stuff you and I will probably never have to do, nor maybe could we, if the situation were put on our shoulders.
Well, if I lean one way, I hurt myself. So yes.
Okay, we need to do a short film of like not making fun of this, but like dealing with like Mark being like, I'm down, guys. Just leave me.
I was in my car earlier and I'm already like, not only did I hurt myself, but like I've just been like achy today and tired. Like I don't know what's wrong with me in the last 24 hours, but I got back from taking my daughter to choir and I looked over at my 14-year-old daughter and I'm like, carry me? He was like, here's your iPad, old man. Shut up. I'm not carrying you. I'm 14 and a girl. So anyway, yeah.
Sexism.
So just shift it over to Robert. I like the fact that warfare's basic thing is, hey, war is brutal. War is terrible. War is gory. And yet these guys, cowboy up and deal with it and get through it. And we should celebrate their what's the word I'm looking for, in the face of adversity. We should be able to celebrate their toughness, that sort of thing. So Robert, go ahead.
Tenacity.
Yeah, yes, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I'm with you. I very much enjoyed this movie. It goes near the top of my list because, well, the rest of my list was not
Minecraft.
very long.
You talking of best movies of 2025 or best war movies?
2025 in particular.
What, you didn't like Minecraft? I'm kidding.
Shut up,
I'm
Dorian.
I will
Oh.
find you.
Dorian.
So there's that. Screw around with you later. I like the technical
Minecraft joke actually pissed him off.
I like the
technical.
No, I like the technical achievement of this. I like the way it's shot and edited. I love the sound design. That's all really good.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just talk for a second about some of the perils and pitfalls of like tandem directors, because we have two directors here. Normally, when you have a team like this, you need people that are either in very serious lockstep or who are, even if they're different, have a lot of history together. So like the Coen brothers direct a lot of movies together because they're very similar. They're not identical, but they actually do, they enhance each other. If you've ever seen some of the movies they've directed individually, a little bit iffier. What they do together is actually really, really good. So pairing Alex Garland with another director, I think in this case, it actually worked to the benefit. You can see which parts of the movie bear a little bit more influence from which guy, but it's complementary friction rather than contrasting friction. So Garland's willing to lean a little bit more into, here we go again, or, boy, we're just humans and some of these guys aren't responding very well. And Mendoza does a little bit more of, yes, that's real, but let's, focus a little bit on how they're responding to some of the actual adversity, not spend forever lingering on one guy just zoning out because he's concussed and staring at his friend whose legs are almost blown off.
Right.
And so again, kind of getting those 2 points together, you do see some of the friction, but not all friction in the creative process is bad. And just figuring out which is good friction and which is bad friction is an art unto itself. And I think these two, we got complementary friction rather than conflicting friction. So that's a big positive. To Mark's point about you don't get to know the characters very well. In the traditional sense, that's true. What this movie does, though, and this struck me in this movie in particular because I rewatched The Wild Bunch not too long ago. And while not exactly an exercise in economy for that particular movie, it's a little bit long, and Peckinpah at that point was experimenting with some stuff that got a little self-indulgent. But the character work in that movie is saying a lot without saying a lot. It's little stuff between the actors. That's what gives you the insight you need into the characters for the most part. And you get a lot of that here. You get how they play off of each other that speaks volumes about stuff we don't know, but can then reasonably infer. And it's just a slightly different style of character work, and it's the only way they could have gone with this given some of the structures that they put in place. Like, you're not going to get the big backstory, somebody spilling their guts to their best friend about how long they've been here or why they joined up. Like, that's not going to be a thing given what we're trying to accomplish with the film. So we build in time for the actors to play off of each other and for how they do that to be very informative of the character without having to go again into like long protracted monologues. So it's what you have to do with the time you have to work with, kind of a thing.
Well, I was telling Mark about this, like, Saving Private Ryan and several other war films have had that, either going to the mission or they're back on base. And I'll use this cliche as an example of, like, you got a soldier sitting on his cot and someone comes in and is like, hey man, we're rolling out in about 2 hours. Orders finally came through. And the soldier sitting on the bed is going through pictures, and it's like, dude, you hear me? Yeah, no, my wife just sent pictures. She apparently had the baby today. And it's like, oh, well, you're dead. You're just dead. It's over. You have a wife who just had kids? Yeah, sorry.
The only time I've seen that played with correctly, and I can't believe I'm going to say this,
Oh, Jesus.
Michael Bay did that right. This is a weird thing, but hear me out here. Before the big battle sequence in 13 Hours, we see all of the guys do that. It's
that was
every.
That was one of the ones that Andrew and I covered for one Veterans Day. Was we did it on trial for 13 hours.
It's one of the few Michael Bay movies that, especially like post Transformers, I think is actually a decent film. It's not perfect, but I didn't say it was great.
Andrew had some major problems with it. It's one of the reasons why
I have problems with it. I'm not here to like say it's the best thing ever.
I just want to point out that Robert just complimented Michael Bay, and we can't see his face. Is this a Borg assimilation situation or invasion of the body snatchers? Because I think there's some strong evidence. He just complimented Michael Bay. I'm freaking out.
I also like The Rock.
Okay, The Rock he gets a pass on, but that's not what we're talking about today.
So it can be done when he does good. I have to say what I enjoyed about it, but anyway.
No, you're right. I just had to mess with you on that because again, you're the flashing Hal light.
I am Hal. I'm Hal right now. That's what's going on here.
Come to peace.
So there's a lot good about this, and the actors doing what they're doing. To your point that you brought up, Mark, there's not a lot of quiet moments in this movie. Like, it starts slow, but there's a lot of tension that's being built there especially if you can pay attention. But there are moments that do, again, character work in smaller doses. Like you mentioned, Will Poulter going, man, I'm concussed and this is not going my way. I am not in the right headspace to make real big decisions. You have to be in charge.
This day has been an emotional roller coaster.
Jonas brought up a really good point. One of the things he said on the way out was, he was like, did you notice there was no score? There was no music in this, and how much that lent to the presentation.
Thank you, Jonas. That was actually my next point on my list. Was I was going to be like, I love that the music was like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You get the percussion of gunfire, and that's about it.
Yeah, and it's so few movies can actually do that.
I'm sorry. How funny though would it have been at the end with like all the Iraqis just kind of walking in the street? You just hear, you put the lime in the coconut and drink a bowl up. You put the lime in the coconut as the credits roll.
Or no, since it's a war film, we got to have them rolling away in the Bradleys, either the Fortunate Son or Buffalo Springfield for what it's worth.
Yeah, something happened.
As long as
what it is ain't
exactly clear.
Look, as long as we're not like throwing Green Day's American Idiot up there, we're all just going to be better off.
Fucking, you see them all being like transported out by chopper, and you hear all along the Watchtower.
Right.
Well, again, all those are 70s songs, so they go for 70s war. I don't know what the approach, again, like Green Day might be about it. That you
bodies by fucking.
No. Okay, this is how the movie ends. If there had been score, because I think this song comes out about the same time, and it is about military stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're rolling out. We're safe. We're trying to get Elliott, fully, stabilized. And Shinedown's Diamond Eyes starts playing.
That would be one.
Yeah,
that would be one.
Robert.
I don't have a whole lot negative to say about this. This is not going to be a movie for everyone. Poor Mark. Like, I assume you're now saving more money for your daughter's therapy bills that you just added to after this one.
Because I am a good parent and must constantly be patted on the back for it, have gotten, given my kids a lot of coping skills. So did she enjoy this? No, but unlike the rest of you pigs, she, she can sit through something she didn't enjoy and it doesn't kill her spirit and her mind. She just goes, well, this wasn't for me. Moving on to the next thing now.
My dad ruined my childhood because he took me to warfare.
My God, you know how many times I've had to deal with that with some of the people on this network? You made me watch this movie I didn't like. It ruined my life. Oh my God.
Okay, no. Okay, I'm saying, okay. I know. I'm short of Mick. I'm the kid of the podcast, but I'm stepping in here and making a rule that everyone should have to follow. If Mark sends you an invitation for something, which is usually how it works, do what I do. When he sent me Hard Bodies, Spring Break, and 10, I went and watched the trailers. Now, I was kind of honor bound to do that one because I'd missed some, so this was my like detention of, hey, you missed class, kids, so, get your ass to detention. But watch the trailer. If by the trailer you can't tell that a movie may or may not be for you, or it's kind of up in the air, then just say you don't want to do it.
Yeah,
like
be an adult.
Like again, I have a whole bunch of people, and again, I've mentioned Mr. Matt Kettner before on this episode. Mr. Matt Kettner again is a Army brat as well. Michaela's as a Marine brat. Michaela didn't have a problem with war movies. Mac does. I would not take Mac to see this. Had I been hosting this, let's say Mark was on vacation. He was like, Dorian, you're hosting because I'm on vacation and Robert's doing other cool shit. And I hated war movies. I would say, I can't do this. I hate war movies. You should find someone else. So to all of you that he's talking about, and you know who you are, stop doing that shit. Soapbox over.
Anything else, Robert?
No, that's about it. Again, there's a lot good about this movie from a technical standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
It's very economical with a lot of what it does. I think they make good use of the gimmick, which is a bit of a rarity these days. And yeah, so this is on my list for best movies of this year with 2 other movies at this point, because I do not fill up my list until I actually like something, and then I backfill if I must when we get to year-end stuff. And Mark kind of goes, "You need a top 10." I go, "But there were only 4 that were any good." And he goes, "Shut up and fill out your 10. We got a format here."
Well, no, because Robert is going to be Minecraft, Snow White, this movie.
Those are on a different list.
And when I remind you, Dorian, I will find you.
I
Hot
certainly
Frosty,
could.
6 times. All right.
Yeah. Again, this is really good. Nice to see. To kind of the point that was raised, it's nice to see a movie whose point is very, very straightforward. It's straightforward, and it's also like unpretentious, uncomplicated. It's just a reminder that, boy, this sucks, and we should have some serious respect for people who go through it and some serious consideration before we invoke it.
I think if somebody, I want to bounce off of that, and then we'll go into the money. I think if somebody's asking, why make a movie that underscores that war sucks? What is the point? Because it's a serious thing, and we're a little too. Some people, not everyone, we're a little too glib about wanting to go to war, about attacking other countries, about invasions. About using our military might. People are just like, we have the strongest military in the world, and we do to a large extent. Most other countries, don't stand the chance. Like if we take even removing nuclear weapons from our arsenal, and you just do everything but that, we have, I think, besides China, like the largest land, sea, and air military in the world, 10 times over compared to almost any civilized country on Earth besides China. Most countries, if we decide, to go to war with them, are done within days. Like, I think if you ask Don Rumsfeld, like, why Iraq, it's kind of to prove that we could do it. If you'll remember, maybe, you might not have been cognizant of it at the time, but Don Rumsfeld talked about the agility of the U.S. military and how we got from Kuwait to Baghdad in days. Yes, it was harder to hold the country for a variety of reasons, which I'm not going to get into. But the actual, like, overthrow of the country from invasion to taking over the capital, a week, I think it took. And his point was that it could be done. That if the U.S. wants to go in Iraq, not a small country. We went into Iraq and took it over within a week, just so you say, this is what we can do. It was a message to the rest of the world, such as it was.
Oh, yeah.
And so what is the point of a movie like this? To remind you that war sucks, because if you're going to do it, understand what the consequences are. Understand that these are people and what we're potentially going to do to them. Now, they signed up for this. We do not have a draft army, despite people's worries and anxieties and protestations over the last 20 years. Still don't have a draft army. Not even close. Still all volunteer. And now, while some people like, but I wanted to join the military to travel, I can't help you. However, despite the fact that they signed up for this, and and they are professional soldiers, still sucks, still awful, still have a lifetime of things to deal with, physical and mental injuries, and those all need to be taken into consideration when deciding that we are going to impose ourselves on any part of the world. That is the point of warfare. Go ahead, Dorian.
And yeah, I just really want to, very quick before we go to the money, bounce off of that.
Mm-hmm.
I had this argument with several people that are in my friend group and family of friends and etc. of why to make a movie like this. Why do we need to see this? Movies are supposed to be about entertainment and escapism, which I would say 98.9% of the time is true. In the situation like this, and I want to be very clear about this, this movie is the mixture between a fan film, and I'm going to explain that, and a biography. The reason to tell a story like this is the reason a lot of filmmakers get into movies to begin with is, and I'm sorry, I will quote Tim Burton because he said it probably best. I'm sure actually another director said it better with more words, but he said, I was very lucky to get into filmmaking because I was able to exercise a lot of my demons. Telling a story like this, and I believe that Mr. Ray Mendoza, who's one of the directors, this is something he was probably thinking, is this story needed to be told. It's a story of friendship and heroism and being in a situation where everything's against you, and yet we persevere. The reason I call it a fan film is, excuse me. Sorry, I thought there was a sneeze there. The reason to tell a film like this is because the story is important. There is friendship. Yes, we, as Marcus pointed out, we didn't get to break down the characters and know what their favorite flavor of Jell-O was, or the fact that they had been cheated on by their girlfriend and, they didn't want to go back home because now this is home and stuff like that. The reason I say a mixture between a fan film and a biopic is because this is a biography. It is actually happened. It happened in real time. And the reason I use the term fan film, and maybe I shouldn't, is because this is something that both of these people cared about enough, maybe not loved the fact that it happened, but cared about enough that they believed, even just to themselves, that the story had to be told. And even if the story was told only for themselves, it was something they felt they had to do. Now, whether you as our glorious listening or watching audience likes it or not, that's up to you. Comments, or put something down in the comments. Tell us if we're wrong. But I believe movies like this every now and again have to happen because the people behind them need to tell this story.
All right, with that said, here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Rawr. Alrighty. Well, on a budget of $20 million, this thing made 8.3 as of this writing. In the United States and Canada, Warfare was released alongside The Amateur, which I will be seeing this weekend, Drop, which I will not be seeing at all, The King of Kings, and is projected to gross $6 to $9 million over almost 3,000 theaters in its opening weekend. It made $1.16 million from previous screenings throughout the week. The number one movie of the week was Minecraft. It held for a second week, only a 51% drop. I don't want to go into a whole thing. We did a whole thing last week. I have it on TikTok. I cut out a piece. I do not need to go into a whole long speech about it, but everything I said about last week, I will double down on. Apparently, destroying theaters is an ongoing thing. Like, people are posting TikToks and videos and reels and shorts of theaters being destroyed by asshole teenagers and it's literally like they are going to hear Jack Black yell chicken jockey and then act like animals. I don't understand the world we live in.
Yeah, it's a terrible place.
Anyway, speaking of terrible places, The King of Kings from Christian studio Angel debuted at number 2. Good for it. The Amateur debuted at 3, and Warfare debuted at 4. Drop debuted at 5. The Chosen, Last Supper Part 3 debuted at 6. A Working Man fell from 2 to 7. Snow White, historically bombing, just cratering, 4 to 8. Woman in the Yard, 5 to 9. Last Supper Part 2, 3 to 10. The Friend, 9 to 11. Death of a Unicorn, 6 to 12. Hell of a Summer, 8 to 13. The Chosen, Last Supper, 7 to 3. The Ballad of Wallace Island, 22, jumped. Apparently it had its wide release. Went from 22 to 15. Captain America: Brave New Racism fell from 10 to 16. Sacramento debuted at 17. Mickey 17 dropped from 12 to 18. Black Bag dropped from 11 to 19. And rounding up the top 20 is A Nice Indian Boy. Debuting at number 23 is 1 to 1, John and Yoko. 32 is The Teacher. I got it bad, I'm half a teacher. So that is the weekend that was. Worldwide, Neja still the number one movie in the world at almost $2 billion.
And I hope it stays there.
Yep, well, we'll see how well Minecraft does. Right now, it's the number 2 movie in the world at 552 million, tracking to break $1 billion. We'll see how far it goes. Captain America: Brave New World petered out at 414, which is about what we said it was going to do. Hey, Robert, would you like to do your evil cackling laugh now at Snow White not being able to break 200 million?
I could, but I thought we were going to just leave that alone. I don't even know if that movie deserves that kind of a response.
The air that it would take to do the evil cackling laugh is not
indeed.
Dogman petered out at 137. Bridget Jones, without a domestic theatrical exhibition, has 131 million. Mickey 17 died at 130. A Working Man got to 78. The Monkey 68. And Den of Thieves Pantera from fucking January still in the top 10. The Ant-Man and the Wasp of 2025, Quantumania. Den of Thieves Pantera at 57 million. Other movies of note, Companion at 36, Black Bag at 36, Wolfman at 34, Novocaine, what a bomb that turned out to be, 33.
Really unfortunate, but yeah.
The Amateur sitting at 32, Last Breath 23, Woman in the Yard 20, King of Kings at 19, despite its second place debut, and anything else we can laugh at? Drop is at 9 million. Just above Death of a Unicorn. So, hey, last week when I went on the rant about Superman, I now know why I now remember why I was doing that. I started to talk about Alto Nights, and I said they've lost so much money on Alto Nights, but they'll make it up with. I was thinking they'll make it up with Superman. But then we ended up talking about Superman for an extended period of time, and I forgot what my point was. That was my point. Was that for all the money they lost on Alto Nights, Warner Brothers will make up for with Superman more than likely. So we'll see. Though I think Minecraft was also Warner Brothers, wasn't it?
At least partially.
Yeah.
So yeah, that. Let me see for a second. Company information. Here we go. Oh my god. I remember when this site used to be usable.
Those were the days.
And Box Office Mojo used to be really great. We would spend a lot of our shows playing with it, finding different charts or whatever. Ugh, I hate this. Moving on. So anyway, that's where we are worldwide. I suspect, Warfare. Well, next week we've got. Next week we're doing WrestleMania stuff, and then we're doing the Netflix movie The Electric State, which I know Robert's really excited for.
It's good you can't see what I'm giving you right now.
Hugs and kisses.
It'd be nice. My little sister's in that movie.
So this weekend is the 18th. Sinners is the big one, which we opted to not do. That'll end up. I would, if it doesn't, either Minecraft repeats or it'll end up being Sinners, and Warfare will be long gone. I've been starting to see some advertisements for The Accountant too. I'll be curious to see how well that does on the 25th, and then we are into May, and May is Thunderbolts. I'm not repeating everything I said last week about that. Got anything, Robert?
No, that all sounds about right. Look, man, we're kind of in a big old trough for like serious release films. And Minecraft is just kind of doing the yay, we're still here and people are still destroying theaters, and I hate so much. So much.
I hate.
I hate. It is all I am programmed to do. I hate.
I like when Dorian's on. We can do Patton Oswalt routines. All right, I'm not going to beat this up. We did 2 extended bits last week during this segment, so if nobody's got anything, then we'll just jump right into the next bit here. And here we go with the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
In a rare agreement between the audience and the fans, we've got
Yep.
93% on the tomato meter and 92% on the audience meter. Top critics, it drops from 93 to 86. All audience, 91. Negligible difference between verified and all audiences. So that's
We
good.
remind you there's a 1% margin of error.
Critics consensus. The AI writes, narratively cut to the bone and geared up with superb filmmaking craft, Warfare evokes the primal terror of combat with unnerving power. All right. No problem there. I'm glad the AI didn't do jokes that time.
Yeah, it doesn't quite have.
This
it
war
doesn't quite have
fared
that
better than other war movies.
Jerky. Stephanie Zacharik of Time Magazine, top critic. If a movie can be elegant and brutal at once, this one is.
A lot of movies can. You're speaking to your own ignorance there.
Sarah Vincent of Sarah G. Vincent Views. Warfare is the latest in Garland's elevated Roland Emmerich cycle, where he takes real-life concerns, or in this case, historical battles, drains context, and leaves spectacle. He is the 21st century's version of William Castle.
Okay. I don't agree with that.
Okay, first of all, William Castle's awesome, so you can step the fuck off. Not you, Robert Hurt.
No, I ain't got you.
The future ex-Mrs. Dorian Price, Perry Nemiroff of Perry Nemiroff YouTube, top critic. Undeniably one of the most immersive and visceral war movies ever made. I was dazzled by the cinematic craftsmanship and marveled at the displays of brotherhood, but was also left utterly shattered by the reality of modern warfare. Oh, lady.
That's kind of the point.
This
Honey,
fume
we
had...
talked about stating the obvious, babe. Last date night, we talked about this. The hell?
Yeah. This movie had its desired effect on me. Speaking of which, the future ex-Mrs. Robert Winfrey, Carla Hay of Culture Mix. Warfare gives a brutal and intense dramatic recreation of a real-life Navy SEAL combat and rescue mission that took place in Iraq in 2006. Carla Hay, reading from the fucking Wikipedia.
Yeah.
The real-time narrative and exceptional sound design increased the tension of this unique war movie.
What a deeply unhelpful review.
I wish I got paid when she gets paid to just rewrite the Wikipedia.
Okay. Mark, literally, you beat me by like 1 second. I was like, guys, I think we're doing this all wrong. These people are getting paid to do this. We are funnier and more interesting. Let's take their jobs and then we get paid to do this. And again, because and I know, Robert, you get a whole bunch of shit for this, but just to finish the joke off, since Robert gets all this crap for hating everything, he becomes our new Roger Ebert. He makes all the money in the world. He gets to retire. He can like live out of that chair we always see him in when he's doing reviews. It's perfect. This is a genius plan.
So the future ex-Mrs. Alexina, Grace Randolph of Beyond the Trailer, coming to a domestic violence arrest near you. One of the best war films ever. And an all-access look at modern warfare, both thrilling and shocking. Real-life soldier Ray Mendoza turned co-director and co-writer makes a huge difference, and the cast is full of very talented up-and-comers. A must-see. Very good rank.
It does bear repeating, Mendoza's contributions to this are non-trivial.
Speaking of non-trivial, Amy Nicholson of Los Angeles Times.
Oh no, she is nothing but trivial.
Warfare wants to live in the dictionary shoehorn between war cry and warhawk. This short and gripping thriller nails its Oxford English definition of the activity of fighting a war while stripping away the cliches.
That is a bad pull, but I assume it's the best she could offer.
This is Amy Nicholson, after all, of 106 different papers and
I want to
publications.
see somebody who gets paid to do all this just be honest and be like, my dudes, I like this movie. Movie be good. Peace.
Well, that's this next guy. Dennis
Oh.
Schwartz of Dennis Schwartz Movie Reviews. The apolitical film offers no anti-war sentiments. Well, thank you, Dennis.
Okay, if you don't understand that a real portrayal of war is fundamentally anti-war, I can't help you.
Right.
You are the kind of person who needs it shouted into your face with a megaphone.
Walking IED, Travis Hobson of Punch Drunk Critics. Warfare doesn't look, move, or sound like other war movies made in the Hollywood system, and it will for sure be mimicked by others hoping to recapture its intensity.
That's true. People are going to try and ape this a lot.
That's unfortunate. Let's see. Oh my God, Robbie Collin actually liked it. Robbie Collin of Daily Telegraph, top critic. I'd certainly be uncomfortable calling it an action movie, even though vast tracks of it are nothing but at least questions ringing in your ears as well as gunfire. And that's it. Gary Newson of Deadline Hollywood Daily. While it aims for an unromantic portrait of combat, it can only conceive of doing so through haptic recreation in lieu of actual characterization. The result is a cacophonous temper tantrum. Oof. A vacuous and perfidious advertisement for military recruitment. Oh, you ass.
You are the kind of idiot who doesn't understand even. Okay, here let me rephrase this for you. You're the kind of person who would complain about people not understanding the satire in Starship Troopers while also claiming that you understand Starship Troopers.
And not even saying he understood Starship Troopers. He'd be like, I haven't read the book, but I have friends who've read the book.
I understand Starship Troopers. It's supposed to be aliens. That would be his interpretation.
As someone who has actually read the book.
All right, that is
it's not a long book. It's a very easy read.
That is our review of Warfare. People are like, you guys do like 2.5 hours. Yes, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're just like efficient, believe it or not. Sometimes we don't have 2 or 3 rants in us a show. So
well, when the movie's
but I'm sure
good,
I'm sure we won't be done in 2 hours because Robert will have to tell us all of his various jobs this weekend.
That's called a segue, folks.
I hate that he doesn't have his camera on. I can't get the reaction I'm looking for.
Right.
I will try playing around with that. And look, I updated to Windows 11, and some of my stuff is trying to figure itself out. And
well, I'll tell you, I did go along last night with Jesse. We did a source material. So what we've been doing is every month or so we do like a marathon recording session, and then he cuts it up for his own feed. But I keep the master video and post it on W2M. Just the video. I don't pull the audio. That's his deal. So last night we did Joker, Killer Smile, Joker Presents a Puzzle Box, and Joker and the Joker War Saga. So that was fun. This Wednesday, I will be on a TV party with Alexa. She'll be hosting. We'll be talking The Bear Season 3. Rawr. Thursday is we kick off WrestleMania weekend with The West Wing Season 4. 20th time I've made that joke. And then
doesn't get funnier.
Shut up. Neither do you. Next Monday, a week from tonight, we're going to take a break from Damn You Hollywood, but not a break from each other. Robert and I are going to do a special edition of the Whiskey Rebellion, and we're going to talk WrestleMania weekend, which I will be home to actually watch, which is great. And then, not to be outdone, Harry Broadhurst and I are going to do another Indie Ciders episode for the month of April, looking at all the collective shows. Joey Janela's Spring Break, Bloodsport, Effie's Big Gay Brunch, etc., etc. So that'll be fun. And then Mick and Mac and Dorian, apparently, are going to be back. This is yet another one of our streaming movie catch-up episodes. I decided I wanted to do nothing but romantic comedies because I am an asshole. So we're doing Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, Don't You Understand? The Life List, and La Dolce Villa, which are streaming on Peacock and Netflix, respectively. So that'll be fun. And then that is it for me. Dorian, show us where you pissed from.
Okay, yeah, it's Dorian Price, and on Instagram and Facebook, it's Dorian Price. I keep meaning to put this down as the actual title for the thing, and I keep forgetting. But it's Dorian Price, videography and photography on both Instagram and Facebook. It needs to be filmed, written, created, edited. We want to make your dreams, your ideas a reality. I'm still trying to fight with this guy here to produce a movie in Florida, so stay tuned for information on that.
He means me. You pointed that way, and I'm over
my camera's
here.
mirrored, so I'm pointing the right way, but it probably is not showing up. So
yeah, you're going the
that guy.
Oh, there you go.
That's
me.
To produce a movie, because again, with all the stuff he's talked about, I truly believe, and the prodigal son returns. I truly believe that Mark Radulich would be an amazing producer, but that's not what he asked me to talk about. I've got several shows this weekend. We've got one for those of you in the Kansas City area. We got 3 bands coming up right now who, unfortunately, I can't tell their names right now because some of them may not be showing up. It's kind of one of those shows of if they show up, cool, but we have understudies. But for those of you in the Kansas City area, go down to the West Bottoms, be at the Ship. It's going to be a fantastic show. They always put on a fantastic show.
Dorian always has super secret plugs. He was like, I'm doing a bunch of things. I can't talk about it.
It's like I'm doing I still want to say I'm doing shit, but it's like, again, this is like the pile of NDAs. Like I want to be able to blur them and be like, see, I'm doing shit. Swear to God. I actually just got done for those of you in the Kansas City area helping actually directing a commercial for the Overland Park restaurant and bar called the Brew Top. It's a fantastic place. The food's delicious. So if you're in that area, please do check it out. But yeah, no, also working for the VKC, which is Vampire Kansas City. They're going to be breaking out some new stuff here really soon. It's going to be really awesome. If you're into Vampire the Masquerade, either the video game or the tabletop game, you're going to be wanting to see what their new line of content is. It's going to be very immersive, and we're very excited about it. But as Mark already said, I will be joining you guys on Thursday. Once again, as your president, your commander-in-chief of these United States for the West Wing season 4. And
I think I'm up to episode 8 or 9. He won the election. That's where I'm up.
Right. Yeah. Spoilers. But for those of you who like watching me tie all this fucking hair back and jump into a suit that makes me hate myself, tune in Thursday. That's all I got. Robert, your camera's working again. It's all you.
It is.
Yeah, speaking of hating himself, Robert, tell us where you pissed from.
That is what the most accurate segue you've done to me ever. I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com, in addition to yapping here about movies or whatever else we happen to talk about. WWE SmackDown on Fridays, UFC events on Saturdays, and occasionally you'll find me other places where I'm asked to pinch hit. I was briefly asked to cover NXT Stand and Deliver this Saturday. That unfortunately will not be possible. I have a previous engagement because I saw there was no UFC event and agreed to do something else. So that's where we are with that.
You have weekend plans?
Say it, what?
All right.
Look,
I know you get weird about anyone knowing about your personal life. So just answer this multiple choice question. Church, friends, or other?
Friends is most accurate.
Cool. Swinger party
so
house?
Yeah, I will be doing. So I have not asked. I have not been asked to cover either night of WrestleMania just yet. So at the moment, that will not be me. But things might change. We'll see what happens.
See, I'm glad he didn't say other, because since him being Hal the entire time, it's like he says other. That's World Takeover. That's Skynet shit.
He also, so I'm allowed one joke per show, which is why I was so ridiculous during our triple feature, because I have to save it for other people now. But I can get one joke in usually in the entire time we're doing this. So I got my one in, and he didn't even hear it. I asked what you were doing, and you were like friends, and then you started to talk, and then I just blurted out Swinger Party House.
That would be under that I would categorize that as other, and I would then be arrested. I would just Molotov cocktail.
Robert, quick
my
question.
God.
Considering he said that, are you now more mad at me for the Minecraft thing or for what he just said?
Probably still Minecraft.
Okay, so I'm still public enemy number one. Cool. Just making sure.
Until Wednesday, when all the small children I do activities for every other Wednesday show up, and will not stop talking about the Minecraft movie. I have not had to do that since it came out. Oh boy.
Okay, so those kids are just going to get me in more trouble because that's just going to fuel the fire.
No. I have no problem being angry at 7-year-olds. So it will be, I can direct it at them. I do not have to redirect it at you. It's okay.
Sweet. Go 7-year-olds.
7 to 9, technically. So yeah, this Friday I'll be covering it's the last SmackDown before WrestleMania, the big old go-home show. This last Saturday I covered UFC 314, which featured Alexander Volkanovski making a little bit of history and was a pretty good pay-per-view card, considering the run of events the UFC had been on was best summed up as ugh. Much like the castle that they tried to set where the Holy Grail is hidden. But okay, that reference out of the way. Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Right?
I got it. I'm just left field.
It's a Monty Python reference. It lives in left field.
Alrighty.
They have a castle in left field. It's just a model. Shut up.
Yes. It's only a model. That's where you can find me in the coming bits. Again, Mark referenced what we'll have coming up. So tune in for any and all of that. If you like this stuff, we deeply appreciate you guys listening. Live or after the fact, like, comment, subscribe, star rating, written review, whatever's applicable to the platform of choice wherein you happen to be watching us. Subscriptions are free on YouTube. Follows are free on Twitch. Please consider throwing us one of those.
All right. Well, I don't feel like talking anymore. I'm tired. So, for Dorian Price, for Robert Winfrey, I'm going to finish the episode of The West Wing before I go to bed. Be well, be safe, and behave.